Okay, so guys, I wanted to actually uh, cover the functions where we can go and see how in practical world we can copy the data using one function, and then we can pass on that range to another function where it is going to paste the data. So basically the same thing we have done previously, but how to do that with using a functions, two functions, one for copy and one for paste. Now before we go and discuss that particular part, I like to go and talk about this at the local variable scope and global variable scope, right? It's very important. So for that, let's simply go and understand this code. I'm saying that, let's say x, okay, so let's say the x value is good. Okay, now this is the function we are creating, which is, let's say, my fx. And here right now I'm not passing anything. Okay, and here then I go and say global x, and then I think I have discussed this thing, but I'm not confident. But again, even if I have discussed, it must have been in the introduction series, right? Not, I mean, in the later series. So today, when we have done so many automation in Excel, I think this will make more sense. So we can take a deep dive into it, isn't it? So I go and write here excellent. Okay, fine. So here I'm going to call my function, which is my fx, correct? And I'm going to write here print status is, and then this x. Please pay attention here. This is very interesting. Now see this now. Uh, so generally, if I ask you, for example, that okay, so please tell me what are you going to have in this print statement? Are you going to see the x as good here, that status is good, or status is excellent? What are you going to reply on this? Excellent. Okay. Okay, so you are saying good. All right. Error. Okay, error. All right. Some are saying good, some are saying excellent, some are just not answering. They are just, I think, thinking what they should say, and some are saying error. Okay, now please understand this. We all know that in any programming, when you write the program, it always executes line by line. If you have written a 50 lines of a code, the code will always start with the line 1 and then line 2 and line 3, from top to bottom, isn't it? It never happens that the code starts with the first line and then immediately jumps on to the 30th or 40th line and skips all those the other middle lines. This is not how the code runs, right? Unless, I mean, your debugger has some sort of that the provision, but otherwise every line gets executed and interpreter checks if that line is making sense or not, isn't it? Now please understand, I don't know if in the function series you have noticed this thing, but today is the right day, because after this we will do a very good exercise also. See, when the code runs here, this is the first line, right? X as good, this is what is captured in the memory. Now immediately some feel that okay, the function is going to be this. Immediately here the code will go inside this. No, code cannot go inside this, because this is a function. This has to be called, this has to be called, and this is where we are calling this. So it means that x is good. When it comes, it's going to ignore this, it's going to move forward, right? It's going to start from the line where this function stops. So function stops here, isn't it? So when code comes here, code immediately sees that okay, I have to go and call this function. So it checks the function back here and then starts executing these lines. This is how the thing work, right? So it does not mean that when code comes here, it's going to skip this and it's directly going to print this line. You must understand this. It's first the function is going to be called, and once the function is called, the moment the function stops, Again, this will come back here, and then it will go and check what is the next line. So in this entire process, what happens, you have a x as good, and then here your pointer comes, and now the pointer sees, okay, I have to go back to my the function wherever it is, right? Then the function comes here, right? Now global x means that you are saying that this x which is inside the function, it can be used anywhere, even outside this function. This is called a global variable. This is not a local variable. So it means that this x is can be accessible even after the area where this function actually is losing its control, where the function does not have its control. Like this is the area where this function is, you know, is having a control. After this, when you comes here, you know, when you, I mean, when x is becomes excellent and then immediately you exit from the function, you know, then whatever you write outside, that basically is not going to be accessible from inside the function in terms of a variable if it is not mentioned as global, right? So what happens when you set global x, it means that we want to go and carry forward this value even outside the beyond the function area, right? Beyond the function area. So global x is fine, and then x is excellent. Now up till this time, x equals to excellent is going to overwrite the value of x, obviously, because this is the line which is going to be executed after this line, isn't it? First you have x as good, and then function gets called, and then x simply overwrites the x value which is good. Now once this function executes, finishes its job, whatever we are doing there, this is where then the next line comes. And so that's why, because it's a global variable, you will find if I run this program, you will see that status is excellent and it's not actually good. So if I go and run this, let's see that what is going to happen in this, right? So let me run this, and now you see that it says status is excellent. Now the next question is, so what if, Ajay, I will go and remove this line, you know, let me comment this line. Now what is going to happen? Can you tell me? Well, obviously, because now this x is a local variable, it cannot be accessed outside the function area. So does that mean then it cannot be accessed? So I'm going to get the error. Well, in this case, you will not get the error because x is already defined before the function, which means that x can be used anywhere, because I told you in the function series also, whatever you write outside the function, before the function, whatever the variable you write, by default, it can be used within that particular the code anywhere, right? So this time when you run the program, status is good will come, right? Status is good will come, as you can see here, right? So what happens if I go and comment this? Now what is going to happen? Now when this x, the code will try to access, from where it is going to access this x? Well, it's not written anywhere, because neither before the function nor inside the function. Now wait a second, inside the function it's written, but it's a local variable, because you never said it's going to be global. So ultimately when you run this, you will get the error that x is not defined. Are you getting the point? Look at this. Look at this. This is very powerful. These are the fundamentals. You must understand these things. Okay. So now my question is that, so guys, tell me, if I go and put you back in the same situation, now tell me, so what is going to happen if I just go and copy this and I paste it here? Now if I run the program, tell me what is going to happen. What is going to happen? Yes. Again, you have to follow the basic rules, the simple rules. Don't get confused. Start the code from here, right? Now x becomes good, fine, and then this is where the line is going to be executed, correct? So here you will have status is good, correct? And then in the next line function gets called. Now when the function gets called, your cursor then moves back here. It is going to find out the function and then it is going to see what you have written here. Now you have written here x as excellent, and you mentioned that this x can be accessed outside the function also. So that means when the x becomes excellent, again when the function is over, I told you immediately your cursor will come here back to the same line from where it is called, right? Back to the same line. This time status is excellent or good. This is not going to be printed again, please understand, because you see when the function actually finishes its job, it immediately goes back to the line from where it is called, right? And then when it is getting called here, it's because we are not doing anything here, right? It simply moves forward, and then by this time when we have this print status is x, this line when we are running, you know, your x actually has become excellent. So it means we will see status is good, status is excellent, both the things we should see, right? Let's see that. Look at this now. Am I making sense to you or not? Right? Okay, so now let me ask you, so what is going to happen if I cut this and I put it here? Now what is going to happen? Yes, bingo, you will get x status is good, status is good. Why? Because you see again the code starts from here and then immediately it comes here, and by this time because you have not entered any function, you write there status is good, and then again one more line which again says the same thing, status is good, and then the function gets called, x becomes excellent, but since we are not writing anything after the function, nothing will get printed, right? So if we run this, we will have status is good, status is good. Is this clear? Right? Now what happens if I cut these lines from here and I put these lines here? Now what is going to happen? Well, again simple, when you come here, function gets called, it's a global function variable, so x becomes excellent, and then the next line is gonna be like status is excellent, status is excellent. So this time you will see status excellent. See that? I remember that, you know, one of the student, what actually he was doing, he was actually using this command, and this command was not there, right? So he was actually facing a trouble. What he was doing actually is this x is, he was not using this x, and then he was using this code, and he was expecting that, you know, status is excellent should come. And what was happening is that every time when he was running the code, you know, this basically the problem was coming, as you can see here, that it's not defined. So he was like, you know, that if I'm declaring the global x, why this x is not accessible, isn't it? This is what we said, that if I go and declare any variable and I'm putting some value over there into that variable, then why I'm not able to use it? Right? Again I'm saying start from the basics. So immediately when the code starts, you know that function, this is not going to be executed by itself, it has to be called. So function, this code, your interpreter goes down, and immediately before I actually call this my fx, for your code will see this line, and it is going to try to print the value of x. But my friend, where is x? X is not defined. Global x you have written inside the function. So till the time this function is not going to be executed, the variable x will not be going to be considered as global. That's why you see this error, right? So it means that what you actually are doing here, because you don't want to create this x as good here, you want to use this value only. So the only thing you have to understand, that if you want to use this value, if you want to carry forward this value which you have calculated in the function, you must go and write that value after the line from where the function is being called, this way. Because now when the code starts, the code will immediately find this language, this line, and it goes to myfx, and in the myfx it is going to obviously check all the values considering it's a global variable, and then finally it comes back to the myfx, and then it's going to print the value. So in this case you will not get any error. Okay, so whenever you write the functions, remember this, start noticing the things, how it is running. Is there any line which actually trying to execute something which is not defined outside the function? maybe you have defined that variable like, inside the function it's a global, but because of that the place where you have the position where you have put that line, that can be a wrong position. So just cut this line and paste this line here will give you an error. So you have to be careful. Okay, so that's a rule, please understand this.